right. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Untherapeutic. Today we have Tessa Barrera. I hope I said that right.
You got it.
Tessa's co-host of the Rod Ryan Morning Show. I'm gonna let her tell a little bit about herself. But today we're talking about dating in the public eye. As many of you know, dating's difficult. But man, when you have a front-facing job or career, it can be extra difficult. So I'm excited today because it's a topic that not everyone deals with, but I know a lot of people deal with. So Tessa, let's just start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm 37 years old. I am a born and raised Texan. I was born in Corpus Christi, which is a small coastal town about 3.5 hours south of Houston. So growing up, Houston was very much the big city for me.
Mhm.
We're going to Houston. It was very much a big deal. And I actually was one of these people that didn't know what career path I wanted to take. I actually had told my mom. What's so funny is that when I was enrolling for college, I told my mom, I said, well, like what the people do on the news, I
Mhm.
said, that's kind of cool. And she goes, well, honey, those are like supermodels. I was like, Mom, are you calling me ugly? No, that wasn't it. It was just, to my mom, that was very much a pipe dream. That wasn't something, like, I needed to be more realistic.
Mhm.
And so I majored in something like general business or something, safe and
Mhm.
boring to me. And lo and behold, that didn't work out. Right. So I'm like, no, I hate this. I hate, the business side. I wanted to talk for a living. I wanted
Mhm.
to be front and center stage. I just didn't know how I was going to do that. So long story short, my cousin worked for a local radio station there in Corpus,
Okay.
and there was a sports show, and it was all guys. And they said, we kind of need someone who's like a loudmouth, but a girl, but who
Yeah.
kind of knows sports. And he
Supermodel.
was like, I have the perfect person for you. So that's how I got my little foot in the door on a little tiny sports radio show in Corpus. And then, other things happen. I ended up being a sports anchor
Wow.
for 4 years there in Corpus. And then I went back to radio. I went to LA to work in Serious News. And that was wonderful. And then when I saw this job opening of the Rod Ryan show, I had been in LA. I was homesick.
Wow.
My siblings were in high school. And I said, that's my job. I'm going to go get that job. And so
Yeah.
I'm a co-host in one of the major markets for media, and
Mhm.
it's in Texas. And I love Houston. It has been so good to me. And I'm here. I'm in the big city now. So
You're
it's
doing what you said you wanted to as a little girl.
that's right. That's right.
So was it everything that you thought? Like when you said, "Hey, I want to be one of those people."
I think I've made it what I want it to be. And so that's always the flexibility and the creativity to be myself. News was a little bit more buttoned up, and it
Mhm.
was always about the other person. And, this role as a co host is interesting because every day I'm being asked personal questions about myself. We're exploring
Mhm.
different topics. And I think this is one of the few jobs where they say, okay, you can actually just be yourself, and
Yeah.
it works out.
Yeah. That's a dream right there. So many times we have to adjust. So when you can just show up and just be you, it's
Mhm.
great. Yeah. So, today's topic, as I said, we're talking about dating, but not just dating, but dating in the public eye.
Mhm.
Obviously you being at radio, having to expose so many aspects of just your personal life.
Mhm.
I can only imagine it comes with its own set of difficulties, right? So just talk to me a little bit, what is your thoughts on dating just in general, at this age?
Well, I've got to say, I think dating, if I'm getting the consensus from what my friends are telling me, and everyone is around me is feeling, I know that it's a jungle out there.
It is.
I personally, because I've been in the spotlight, I've always stayed away from dating apps and things like that. But I
Mm.
wouldn't say that that has made my experience that much better. I thought when I got into TV, I thought, okay, I'm going to find a high quality man. They're going to see me on TV. They're going to fall in love with me, and it's just going to be
Just like
easy.
the movies.
But really learning that people's intentions aren't always pure, because are they a fan of you, or are they a fan of what you do? Do they like the actual person that goes home and
Mhm.
isn't on TV or the radio? Those are all things I've had to kind of learn and and really sometimes the hard way, learn lessons the hard way, say, hey, this person, they kind of like the radio version of you, the real you, maybe they're not vibing so much,
Yeah.
and turning it around too, saying, hey, am I being authentic in myself as who I'm presenting, as well as who I am? Because I feel like the city of Houston gets the 4 best hours of my day every Monday through Friday. So
Okay.
there's not always a ton left over for someone else.
Mm.
So that's one thing that I have learned.
Yeah. Let's go back, when you talk about, people's intentions and again, I mean, whether it's someone that's a professional athlete, someone that's, say an attorney, I'm sure in the back of their mind, if they're still single and still dating, that that's something that they deal with, right? Like, are you really, really into me, or are you just into this or what you think this looks like? How do you, just through your experience, like how have you been able to pick up on people who don't have, let's just say, as pure intentions?
Well, I think that the woman's intuition is one of her strongest assets that she can
Mm.
have. And I think that little voice inside of you, I always say, men and women, we are gloriously different. We really are. And equal, fine, different, very much so. I always tell my brothers, I'm like, so you really think God gave you all these muscles, all this testosterone, and all of this strength, and just said to women, and you don't get anything? We women have a sense. We know when something's wrong. Our
Mhm.
bodies will tell us. We can even try to lie to ourselves. Our stomach will be in knots. We'll get a headache. I'm learning more and more to lean into that all the time. And it's very cliche. I've heard people, well, listen to your heart, listen to your heart. No, listen to yourself, listen to your inner self, because you'll know when you're not being authentic, and you'll say, okay, is this person bringing this out of me? What is this? What are these little red flags
Mhm.
popping up that's not really sitting right with me? Making little mental notes for yourself and saying, well, this person maybe only wants to hang out when maybe Rod's there or the rest of the show's there, or they're not really wanting to, they're not going to be the person to help me move
Yeah.
on a weekend when I need to borrow their truck. They
Yeah.
just want to do the fun stuff,
Mhm.
so things like that.
Yeah, that intuition is so important. I heard this old pastor say one time, like intuition comes before information or something like that. But it was just like sometimes we just feel it first, and then sometimes we get the information. And so,
Mhm.
really being in a place to kind of trust your instinct and your gut, because it's so front facing, right? And because, like you said, hey, the city of Houston gets the best part of you, at least for 4 hours. How are you able to like pull away and really kind of just stay in tune with you and just make sure that you keep a close pulse on close watch, let me say, on just your body and that intuition?
Well, when I first got here, I had a lot, I wanted to prove myself. So I would stay later maybe than I should. And I would really just focus all show. I was trying to show them like, hey, you got the right girl. But there
Mhm.
was a point where my body was breaking down. The hours were really getting to me. You wake when that alarm hits at 4 a.m. and you've spent all night trying to mingle, or be who people expect you to be, the fun party girl that you
Mhm.
are on the radio. Like those two worlds collide, and it is
Yeah.
so brutal. I think in my first year, with the COVID, I know a lot of people gain weight with COVID, but me, just with the lack of sleep, I was gaining weight. My skin was breaking out. I could tell that something had to give. So I had to start serving those parts of myself. I had to carve out time to either take a nap or get to bed early, tons of
Mhm.
water. I mean, I had to really make function at the level that a normal person with normal sleeping hours function. I like everyone I'm talking to, they have 4 more hours of sleep than me, that or three
Yeah.
or two, and that makes a difference. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I always try to give myself grace and say, you can't say yes to everything. You have to really pick and choose what you want. I was an athlete, a wannabe athlete back in the day,
Okay. It's
and
okay. We all were athletes.
I play volleyball still Monday,
Mm.
Wednesday, Friday. That's a great relief. I feel like like we're all puppies, right? We just need to run
Yeah.
ourselves, out sometimes, get all that stress and get all that anxiety out. I feel like that's one of my
Mhm.
big releases. And then keeping around friends, good quality girlfriends,
Yeah.
having a network of women that are just so helpful.
Yeah.
That's my those are my people.
Yeah, you kind of answered the next question. I was thinking about just the whole idea of boundaries. This word gets thrown around so much, especially in counseling. Like, oh, you got to set boundaries. Oh, you got to set boundaries. Like, what does it really mean? And I know it's different for different people, but just as you transition back to Texas and new role, COVID. I mean, there was a lot going on just around that period of time. What has been like one or two boundaries that you have just had to keep in place just to maintain that sense of well-being and just making sure that you are okay.
Well, I actually started therapy not with very recently, within the last couple of years. And I boundaries are a brand new thing to me.
Okay.
So I think I got to this level and I have been what people would think is successful, but I was being what everyone else wanted me to be. And so it's like, of course you were successful. You never said no to anything. You never made time for yourself. You put everyone before you. You were watering all the gardens around you. You
Mm.
never watered your own. And I mean, I could look at myself and say, how did it get this bad? So
Yeah.
now that I've 30 probably at 35 learned what a boundary was,
Mm.
I have really started building a life that I'm finally saying, you have a problem with that? That's not my problem. You
Yeah.
have, you want this, but I can't do it. Again, not my problem.
Can't take that on.
Everyone is battling their own thing. I have to keep my peace in
Mm.
my space, and that's
Yeah.
really I draw boundaries every day. My girlfriend, hey, let's go work out. I can't. I need to sleep. I can't.
Yeah.
Where are we gonna go later? Do not disturb. I already told you once. Then no,
Yeah.
you won't hear from me again.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh wow, that's kind of mean. Well, I think it's mean that you didn't hear me the first time.
Yeah. You still ask it, even though I told you. Yeah. I know this is off topic, but I do think it's important for people who have struggled saying no. Because I think that's one of the biggest things when it comes to boundaries, just being comfortable saying no and dealing with the tension. Because there is that tension, like, what if they think this, or what if they, respond this, or don't, all these narratives that we create in our head. What piece of advice or encouragement would you give to someone who is struggling in that area, like with just saying no?
I would say that your life starts to change once you start being assertive with your needs. You
Mm.
can be that person that you aspire to be. You're you have to spend more time with you than anyone else in the world. So why would you not put yourself first?
Mm.
You are in charge of your life. Everyone else, no matter what, no matter how lovely, no matter if they're good people, no matter if they're your mom, they're your dad, they're your brother, those are the people, I'm very close with my family.
Okay.
But telling them no sometimes has broken chains that have freed me
Yeah.
up to be a better sister, to be a better daughter. And
Mhm.
I mean, you put yourself first. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
And not in a, if you see someone struggling,
You
you
step
don't go
over.
help them. Well, I'm going to put myself first, not in that way,
I'm
but
gonna be
just
late. Yeah. No.
you have to you spend your whole life in here.
Yeah.
Be someone that you can be proud of.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I appreciate you sharing that. I know, when I say it a lot of times people are like, yeah, but you're a therapist. You're supposed to say that, right? Which is true. But just knowing that it's actually a real thing and it is liberating once we say no. So going back to dating, all right. So if you had a magic wand, okay, and you could just change one thing about just dating, what would it be?
I think it would be the I guess it would be the values that we put out there. I the value that we put out for someone aesthetically, like you, like I feel like I'm just going to say it. I think
Yeah.
that sexuality and being hot, that takes precedence over being an actual good person.
Yeah.
And I feel like, men can say, oh, well, I don't want a girl who's doing all that. But it's clear in the clicks. It's clear what people look at. It's clear
The
what people
views don't
do.
lie.
of what they value. You know what I mean? And I'm not a prude. I'm not a prude. I've got, a couple of some of my most popular videos on TikTok are me in a bikini chugging beer. I'm not a
Yeah.
prude by any means. I just wish that I feel like men say they want a good woman,
Mhm.
but they are showing you otherwise with every other action that they do. I
Yeah.
have with this platform have so many followers and men, married, girlfriend that will say, disgusting things to me, and it
Yep.
shows me that ugly side
Yeah.
of, do I even really want to date? Like, if marriage is the end game, look at all this crazy stuff going on in my DMs. I don't think I want in. It's not. And even to look at a game and just say, I don't really want to play. I don't think I
Yeah.
really want to play that game anymore. I think I'm just going to focus over here and let the
And
chips fall where they do. Yeah.
how do you keep yourself though from and I don't want to say like tainted because that's such an extreme word, but when you see this, I mean, it's easy to be like, oh no, if that's it, I don't want any part in that. Like, how do you remain optimistic?
Well, I just think that before you go shooting your, when I think a lot of people say, "Oh, I want to be an influencer. I want to have this big platform." You know,
Mhm.
that attention from the masses is so fleeting, and it's so
Yeah.
abundant, and it doesn't really mean anything. So at the end of the day, I stay optimistic by saying, are you proud of who you are becoming, of the person you're growing to be? And if there's any area where it's not, what can we do to work on that? I
Mhm.
love going out. I love, having a good time. And I can do that with my friends. I can take myself to dinner. It's very Miley, I can buy my own flowers. That's the
Yeah.
era that that's the song that everyone's singing. And it's for a reason, because you're realizing, dang, I can't really depend on another person for my happiness. I kind of have to curate it myself. And
Mhm.
that is the scariest, but also coolest thing.
Yeah. That you have that power and control to do that.
Right.
Um, you were talking about just the attention and how fleeting it is. Do you think that's just in general, or do you think that's one of the unintended consequences of being in the light? Do you think we're all dealing with that to some extent? Because even if you don't intend, to like watch how many people like it or see how many people we almost get sucked in the matrix. You know,
Absolutely.
do you feel like just generally that's just the direction we're going, or do you think it's different when you kind of have a career that's front facing?
Well, now anyone can be, anyone has a platform. Anyone can get attention, and I'm competitive. Like I said, like I mentioned,
Mhm.
I'm a former athlete. I do look at likes. I do want to know how many views I am. I do want to see how many. That's part of my job, and I don't mind being competitive with it. I'm not posting, oh, she or he posted this, so now we should do that. I'm not. I'm very self focused. What can I do better? What would be
Yeah.
funny? What would make people laugh? What would make people say, "Oh my gosh," kind of.
Mhm.
That's my line of thinking. Um, I just don't want anyone to ever think that my DMs are so much different and better than your DMs, because
Yeah.
it's not. It's more crap on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
Attention for me, male attention for me is one of a very abundant resource. It's so useless. It does not pay my bills. It does not, do anything. And to the men, I would say, if you are going to message someone, it's just avoid the low hanging fruit, avoid the most obvious thing to say, avoid being cliche, avoid talking to a woman if you have a girlfriend or a wife. It's like, it seems simple, but it like happens every day.
Yeah, I can believe it. I can believe it. It's so funny. Sometimes these simplest things, like we just overcomplicate. I see it all the time in counseling. I'll see couples, and it'll be like it's just so basic, right? It's like just do it, and it's like no, that can't be it. I'm like no, actually, that's it. So,
Uh-huh.
it's important. Talking about social media. I know a lot of times I'm talking to people and I'm like, hey, you need to scale back. You need to pull back because even if you don't want it to be stressful, it can create some anxiety. How do you create those like online boundaries? Because this is a part of your job. So this isn't like you're just doing this, some random hobby. Like
Right.
this is something you wanted to do when you were younger, like you've been in it, right? And so you
Right.
have to show up online.
Right.
Um, but how do you like cut it off?
Well, I've made the mistake because I have had serious relationships while I've been working,
Okay.
where I had a boyfriend that wanted to post and share everything we did. I mean, he was more in this than I was. I was like, I'm the one who's supposed to be sharing stuff, but
Yeah,
he
I'm
was
on the radio. Chill.
all over it. Right. I think he was one of these people who just loved the attention
Yeah.
that came with his, I mean, he had a high powered job too. So it wasn't like he was just some slouch and here's my TV girlfriend. He earned more than me.
Yeah. Like sitting on the
Was,
couch.
but he loved social media.
Okay.
And when we broke up, and this was years ago,
Mhm.
it I found the repercussions of having to try to explain, hey, where's your boyfriend?
Yeah.
Hey, where's your so after that relationship ended, that was a hard lesson I had to learn. When I dated again, I was like, I'm not posting. The next man that I post on my social media will be my husband. I'm not going to explain. And even then, people go through divorce. You just have to
You
realize
gotta go
the
through like a
things you
2 year
share,
trial period.
people want an explanation. They feel like they know you. They hear you on the radio every morning.
Mhm.
So, and you kind of, if a listener has a question, I mean, I'd like to feel like I could answer it honestly. I never want to say, well, that's none of your business, because that's the job I chose. It kind of is their business.
Yeah. But is it though? I mean, because you're right. I mean, obviously, I get lost in the matrix at times and I'll see people like feel some type of way. Like,
Mhm.
how come they didn't tell us this? And why, and it's like, do they owe us something just because they're front facing? Like, shouldn't there be parts of their life that they can be okay with not sharing?
Right. And I go back and forth with that because it just depends on how big you are on transparency and how much I like to think, my listeners, there's a community here, and
Yeah.
that we're honest with each other, and that we say, hey, you know what, sometimes I go a month without washing my sheets, and it's like, that's really gross, but you're sharing it. I go 2 weeks max. We
Yeah.
have conversations like this every day on the air. Do you owe it to anyone, to your life's choices? No, because it is your life.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I don't ever want to again do something where my listeners are like, well, that's kind of unbecoming. You know what I mean? That's kind of unbecoming. But I do agree. And I live a life where, listen, it's very easy for me to be an open book. I'm not
Okay.
in a relationship. I don't have kids. I don't know how I would feel about sharing my kids, or
Yeah.
why or why not we chose to send them to public school or private school, or private school or public school.
Mhm.
Those things, no, you don't owe anyone an explanation.
Yeah.
Everyone does their things. Everyone's, to me, out here just trying to survive and do what's best for them.
Yeah.
And that's no different whether you're, Kim Kardashian, who is such a polarizing, my audience hears that and they're like, oh God, why would you use her as an
Yeah.
example? Uh, but yeah, they don't, no one needs to know. But if people have followed you and supported you just the way you would ask them to buy this product that's sponsoring me, look, they love me, so it helps me if you buy the product, just the way they trust you for that.
Yeah.
I feel like you curate other relationships, and then, oh, you ask me a personal question, that's none of your business. So I'm
Mhm.
very much to where I do feel like sometimes, yeah, I do owe people an explanation.
Yeah. It's, obviously I'm not in that space. I mean, no one knows me, right? So
Yes.
yeah, right. Yeah, all 900 followers. But as I just think about it though, I'm just on the fence, right? Because I do see how people say like, oh, they were living a double life. And I'm like, were they? Or were we just in love with the on air or the on TV version of them? Or if say they do something that we consider like wrong, like, oh, how could they do this? It's like, but do we really know them? Or do we just see them, weekdays at noon and we feel like we know them?
Well,
So
you put people up on a pedestal,
Yeah.
And that's one thing I'm like, don't do that to me. I am not your hero. I am,
You're not going to go speak to the elementary school kids?
no, no, no. I have done that. And kids love me. Kids adore me because I tell them the truth.
Yeah.
And every now and then I'll let a curse word slip out and they think that's super scandalous.
Yeah.
So no, I
Yeah, you can
definitely am
bring your
not
dad.
your, you know, I'm not your mother Virgin Mary for sure, but I'm definitely like, I think that the other part of me is allowed to be like, I'm allowed to be grumpy. I'm allowed to
Yep.
come home and be a bitch sometimes, but I'm
Mhm.
saying that like, yeah, I was in a bitchy mood, dude. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You have to allow people to be human
Yep.
no matter what space they're in.
This is so random, but so me and my mom get to arguing about Beyonce all the time. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And obviously the tickets just went on sale. And I was telling her one of the things I just love about Beyonce is like her albums reflect like these different seasons of life that she's in. Like she can
Mhm.
come out with a um, shoot, like Lemonade, but then come out Renaissance, but then come out with, Dangerously. I mean, and they're all like true to where she is. So just to
Mhm.
your point, I use that example, say just to your point, just allowing people to evolve, to be different. No one is like one dimensional. And
Mhm.
so just creating that space for the differences to exist, I think is super important. What's something that people wouldn't imagine? Like they see you on, well, they hear you on radio, they see you out. Obviously, you bring your most authentic self to work, but what's something that people just wouldn't imagine? Like they wouldn't assume this.
I think people wouldn't assume because I am single, because I don't have a family. I don't think they would assume how motherly I am. Actually, I have younger siblings. My mom had my sister when I was a senior in high school, and then my brother when I was a freshman in college.
Okay.
And I feel like I've raised those babies like they're my kids too. And I feel like people don't get to see that side of me. Any animals, the very softer side of me, I feel like is um that's the part of me that my friends know, and they're like, "Ah, you're such a softie, you're such a sucker," because I will fiercely defend and I will fiercely argue and I will talk shit and I will go toe to toe with anybody, anytime, anywhere. I will not back down. But there is a side of me that loves creating space for someone to feel safe, and I love mentoring young girls,
Yeah.
and even if it's to teach them to learn through some of the mistakes I've made,
Yeah.
things like that. I want everyone to succeed. So while I'm fiercely, fiercely competitive, I also want everyone to eat. I want everyone to have their best life and best journey. I truly wish the good for everyone, even though I'll like flip you off and say, yeah,
Yeah.
you
And
can
I'm
run
sure
to me.
on the volleyball court, it's pretty beast mode. So
Well, you know what? The cool thing about volleyball is that there's a net dividing us. So that's great. Now, when it was basketball, it was on. I mean, I was
okay,
getting technicals here. I was getting, you know,
Fallon,
absolutely, absolutely. Would score maybe 2 points, use all
yeah,
my fouls,
yeah,
the
coming in and get it
enforcer of the team.
right. All right, since you talked about mentoring, let's just end on this. One piece of advice. Anyone out there dating? I mean, you've shared so many different nuggets, and I really appreciate it. But just someone who's discouraged. Let's say that someone who's discouraged at dating. I had a client one time tell me, Nick, you just don't understand. The dating pool is filled with piss, and I was like, oh, that's a good analogy, but not a good analogy. One piece of advice for someone who's discouraged, who's out there and desires to be in a relationship.
Well, I would say you are good enough on your own. You absolutely are good enough on your own. But don't be afraid to be open to new people and new experiences. A lot of people have sayings like, I just want someone to match my energy, someone to vibe with. I would say, you know, people that don't maybe match your energy, you could learn something from, or
Mhm.
you could, really surprise yourself.
Yeah.
So I would say remain optimistic. I'm literally I'm not looking at you, Dr. Nick, right now. I'm looking at myself. I'm looking at myself because I'm telling myself,
Yeah.
sometimes I wonder, is there a healthy relationship out there for me?
Mm.
The healthiest one starts with yourself. So
Yeah.
nurture that. And I really am a perpetual optimist that things will fall where they may.
Yeah.
And you might learn a hard lesson from someone, but that has nothing to do with you at
Yeah.
all. If your heart is pure.
I love it. Where can people find you online? Speaking of online, right? Going back to social media, where can people find you online, or if they want to connect with you on the morning show, like what's the best way to go about that?
So we put it in my handle here because that's how you find me on all the platforms. At Test One, Test Two is my handle for Instagram, for TikTok, for Facebook, everything, Twitter, all of it. And I do try to stay interactive with everyone. If you send me an ugly message, I'll screenshot it and I'll share it. If you send me a nice
Would be
message,
exposed.
I'll respond.
You would be exposed. For any married men out there, you're not gonna go undetected. So
I
just
have receipts. I have receipts stacked to the moon. I am ready for a rainy day with my receipts. Do not come for me. But if you
yeah,
need help, in any other way and I can be of assistance, I will. It's my pleasure. It is my pleasure.
awesome, awesome. Well, I appreciate you, everyone listening. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Untherapeutic. Obviously, you can follow us online. You can follow me online at Nick Hardy, no K, NICHERDY_. Thanks so much, guys.